بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. في حد تحت؟ بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. So in the chapter of the funerals, we had stopped at the part that talks about the number of people performing the funeral prayer. The more the number, the better for the deceased person. Allah would accept their supplication for the deceased person, especially if the number was greater. But there's a hadith, of course, that mentions that if 40 people perform the funeral prayer and they are of the quality that they do not associate with Allah anything, Allah will accept their intercession for him. The next part in the chapter is Kayfiyatu Salat al-Janaza, how to perform the funeral prayer. Number one, they say that the preconditions needed for the funeral prayer are similar to the ones that are needed for any prayer. And that, of course, includes the wudu, the cleanliness of the body, the cleanliness of the clothing from any najasa, impurities, and also the cleanliness of the place as well, right? All these are necessary for the Salat al-Janaza. Satr al-Awra, covering the body as well, the Awra especially, the parts of the body that should not show, and Istiqbal al-Qibla, the niyyah, having the intention, Taswiyat al-Sufuf, making lines. All these things we do in normal prayer are required for the funeral prayer. Now, and not because there's a specific hadith that says that, but because it is a prayer and we should make an analogy between prayers unless there's an evidence that shows otherwise. Unless there's an evidence that shows otherwise. Like, for instance, if you do, for instance, sujood al-shukr, like if something that makes you happy happens to you, you can make sujood al-shukr. That they say you do not need to be on wudu or tahara for that. You don't know, because those things happen in different occasions. And whenever they happen to the Messenger ﷺ or the Sahaba, they would make sujood al-shukr in whatever situation they are in. And we can conclude that some of those situations they did not have wudu, for instance, and they still made sujood al-shukr, you follow? But this is a prayer, so we should really apply the same rules of a prayer to it. Now, the Imam doing the funeral prayer should stand. Where should he stand? عن سمرة بن جندب قال صليت وراء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على امرأة ماتت في نفاسها فقام عليها وسطها. Samra ibn Jundub, the companion, says that I prayed behind the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم the funeral prayer for a woman who had died during her post-delivery period, and nifas. He stood, let's say the casket is like this, he stood in the middle. فقام على وسطها. That's for a lady, that's where the Imam should stand. عن أبي غالب قال صليت مع أنس بن مالك على جنازة رجل فقام حيال رأسي ثم جاءوا بجنازة امرأة من قريش فقال يا أبا حمزة صل عليها فقام حيال وسط السرير فقال له العلاء بن زياد هكذا رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قام على الجنازة مقامك منها ومن الرجل مقامك منه قال نعم. He's asking فلما فرغ قال احفظوا. This is an important hadith that shows us where to stand with regards to the body of the deceased, whether a man or a woman. This man called Abu Ghalib, he says, I prayed with Anas ibn Malik on a funeral prayer, for the funeral prayer on a man, and he stood at the head of the deceased person. So the person is laying like this, he stood at the head. Then a woman who was from Quraysh, she also was brought for the funeral prayer, and he stood in the middle of the body of the deceased person. So a man called Al-Ala ibn Ziyad asked him, he said, did you actually see the Messenger ﷺ standing in those positions, those different positions for a man and a woman? He says, yes. فَلَمَّا فَرَّ قَالَ احْفَظُوا. So when he was done, he says, remember that, or know that, or note it down. so as to know the sunnah in this matter. This is the opinion of most scholars. This is where to stand for the janazah. This is the opinion of الشافعية وبعض الحنفية وأهل الظاهر. وخالفهم في ذلك آخرون. قال أبو حنيفة يقف الإمام عند صدر الرجل وكذلك المرأة فهما سواء. قال مالك يقوم عند وسط الرجل وصدر المرأة. ورواية عن أحمد يقوم عند صدر الرجل ووسط المرأة وهو قول الشافعي. Anyhow, there's other opinions as well, such as Imam Abu Hanifa says you stand in the middle, in the chest, opposite to the chest part, whether a man or a woman. Just want to mention those other opinions, so in case somebody does that, you don't make a big fuss about it. These are different opinions as well, and this is the sunnah. It's not like obligatory. If he hasn't committed a sin if he stood at a different part of the body. You follow? قال Malik for instance says يقوم عند وسط الرجل وصدر المرأة. He says he would stand in the middle of the body of the man and the chest of the woman, for instance. So totally different, right? ورواية عن أحمد يقوم عند صدر الرجل ووسط المرأة. عند أحمد, there's a narration from Imam Ahmad, or in his madhab, says he stands in the chest, opposite to the chest of the man or the middle of the body of the woman. And this is one of the opinions of Shafi'i as well. Just different opinions, but the hadith, these hadith are authentic hadith, the ones that we just mentioned to you. The first one is in Bukhari and Muslim, so it's very authentic. The second one or maybe is of a lower level of authenticity, but it is authentic still. It's in Sunan Tirmidhi, Sahih Abu Dawood, or Sahih Ibn Majah, so it's a reliable hadith as well. So these are the opinions. And the author of this book, she says أرى والله أعلم أن الصواب من ذهب إلى أن الإمام يقف عند رأس الرجل ووسط المرأة للأحاديث الصحيحة الواردة في هذا الباب. She says, I choose the opinion of the majority of the scholars that he should stand, the Imam should stand opposite to the head of the man, the deceased person, and opposite to the middle of the body of the deceased woman, based on those authentic ahadith which we just recited to you. Now, إذا اجتمعت جنائز الرجال والنساء كيف توضع ليصلى عليها. Now, if there's more than one janazah, more than one deceased person, how should they put them, in what order for the salah? Here they're going to mention the order, like which line, which one goes in the front, which one goes in the back. عن نافع أن ابن عمر صلى على 9 جنائز جميعا. Nafi' says that Ibn Umar, Nafi' used to serve Ibn Umar. He says he prayed on 9 deceased people at the same time. 9 janazah, 9 deceased people were there. فجعل الرجال يلون الإمام والنساء يلين القبلة فصفهن صفا واحدا ووضعت جنازة أم كلثوم بنت علي امرأة عمر بن الخطاب وابن لها يقال له زيد وضعا جميعا والإمام يومئذ سعيد بن العاص وفي الناس ابن عمر وأبو هريرة وأبو سعيد وأبو قتادة فوضع الغلام مما يلي الإمام فقال رجل فأنكرت ذلك فنظرت إلى ابن عباس وأبي هريرة وأبي سعيد وأبي قتادة فقلت ما هذا قالوا هذه السنة. Basically, I'll read this hadith to you in a minute. إذا اجتمعت جنائز الرجال والنساء صلى عليهم الإمام صلاة واحدة وجعل جنائز الرجال مما يلي الإمام وجنائز النساء مما يلي القبلة وهذا مذهب الجمهور. Basically what happens is if there's men and women, so the Imam is standing here, right in front of the Imam would be the deceased males, and beyond that, between that and the Qibla would be the deceased females. So they would be at a bigger distance from the Imam. Closest to the Imam would be the males, and then the ladies. If there's a boy, according to the hadith I just recited, the boy mimma yali al-Imam, he even becomes even closer to the Imam than the men. So it would be, the order would be boys, then the men, and then the woman. Yeah. But there's of course different opinions you'll see as well on this matter. This hadith I recited to you is in Sunan Nasa'i, and it's an authentic hadith. Let's see if she shows an opinion here. What I just mentioned to you is the opinion of most scholars. قال مالك إذا اجتمع جنائز الرجال والنساء جعل الرجال مما يلي الإمام والنساء مما يلي القبلة. This is what Imam Malik also chose. جاء في شرح المهذب قال ذكرنا أن مذهبنا أن يقدم إلى الإمام الرجال ثم الصبيان ثم الخناثة. Anyhow, in this other madhab is that the men and then the boys. So the boys are not closer to the Imam. ومن قال يقدم الرجال مما يلي الإمام والنساء وراءهم عثمان بن عفان وعلي وابن عمر وابن عباس والحسن والحسين وزيد بن ثابت. So all these names I'm mentioning say that the men should be first, just opposite to the Imam, and then the ladies should be beyond that. Now, and in the hadith I recited, وضع الغلام مما يلي الإمام. The boy was placed closest to the Imam, and this is a janazah that Ibn Umar prayed for. And amongst the people praying was multiple Sahaba, Sa'id ibn al-As, Ibn Umar, Abu Huraira, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Abu Qatada, and they all were there. So a man asked, why did you do this order? And it was said to him that this is a sunnah, he is sunnah. Okay, we will stop here.